Everybody thinks the NFL Combine is about 40 times in bench reps. It's not. The real Combine happens behind closed doors, where every GM, every head coach, every agent is in the same hotel for a week. That's where trades get floated. That's where rumors turn real. That's where franchises pivot. And this year, based on what Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson just said at the podium, the Bears might be cooking up more than anyone expected. Tyson Bagent trade talks? Not a rumor. DJ Moore speculation? Left very wide open. Defensive backfield overhaul? Sounds very real. The workouts are noise. The press conferences, that's where the smoke starts. And in Indianapolis, this week, there's a lot of it. I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. Tonight with me is my co-hosts and good friends, Justin and Bob. This is the Halas Huddle, where we don't bring just smoke, we bring the fire.
All right. Love the intro, Rob.
Yeah.
Hey, if you guys liked what you're hearing here on the Halas Huddle, please like, comment, and subscribe. Rob, I know you got a little more, so keep going as you're going to kind of lead us through this episode.
Yeah, so I'm going to just kind of like host us through this, but I just want to do a quick message because I feel like I've established enough that we talk about the stadium talk enough on the show that it's very important for people who have tuned in and subscribed to our channel who might be wondering why haven't we brought anything up at this point when the Indiana situation has kind of inflated here or down in Hammond, Indiana, right? There's some things stirring, some things going on behind the scenes, and I don't want to just jump the gun. And I think I'm going to wait a couple more days before I address the situation, but we will talk about it in full over the next few days. Otherwise, let's move on. Look, Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, they were at the podium. They did their press conferences down in Indiana, another Indiana reference, down to at the Combine at Lucas Oil Stadium today. And they also did some press interviews throughout the day as well. So anything that might have happened throughout that could be addressed here. We're going to start with the salary cap situation. Look, Ryan Poles in his press conference, guys, he addressed it loosely. Like he just made it sound like, there's not a lot of funds that might be available. They might have to be a little bit creative. Where do you guys, I'm going to go to Bob first since Justin did the intro. How do you think that what do you think that means for free agency? Do you think that it means that there is no chance at a big swing? Do you think they got to temper our expectations as Bears fans? Where do you think we're going with this? Is it just noise?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it was kind of telling. So first of all, they did multiple interviews today. I don't know how many you're keeping track. I counted at least 3 each for Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson. They did the one at the actual Combine where everyone's kind of in a pit. They did one actually with like a press conference background. Specifically, it seemed like for Chicago media, but everyone else was there. And then they did ESPN radio, and they might have done NFL Network too. I think I might have saw that. But either way, each of them individually, there's 6 different interviews at least try to catch up with today and try to see what was consistent through all of them. And I think the biggest thing as far as the salary cap that it came up to was Ryan Poles definitely said there's philosophical beliefs within the building about restructuring contracts and not kicking the can down the road, because then that prevents you from doing interesting things in those years. Right. So I think, what we had done on this podcast in our mock off season, restructuring Tooney and Jackson, we did a lot of restructuring. I just don't think that that's necessarily what the Bears are going to be doing. So I don't think they're going to get to that $50 million number that we were able to get to. You take off the side of the draft picks, $40 million to work with. So I do think that there is going to have to be some restraint on what we believe is going to happen, as well as just what they believe is going to happen. But I also do believe you always got to read between the lines, and a lot of what goes on at these press conferences, I think specifically at the Combine, is kind of politicking to the league, kind of telegraphing what you want to do. And we know Ryan Poles likes to make trades. So I think basically what he's telling the league is, hey, we're open for business as far as trades go. We're going to get some other things down the line about specifically who the Bears might be looking to trade. But I do think it was more so, hey, we're constrained by cap, so we got to move money around. So we're open for business for interesting trades.
Yeah, I mean, I read into it the same way. And one thing is, we here on the Halas Huddle in our mock off season right away got $15 million from cutting Tremaine Edmonds, but they're not in a rush to do that. I mean, maybe a team will trade for him, and I think the savings is about the same. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you also would then be getting maybe some compensation in terms of a draft pick. So there really was no benefit on that podium to announce, oh yeah, we're cutting Tremaine Edmonds and we're going to trade DJ Moore. But those things are still in play. I do want a domino to fall. But like you said, Rob, in the intro, all the GMs and coaches and everyone's there, except for the Jaguars, I heard. But that's pretty odd. I kind of want to now track their off seasons and see, like, are you just out of everything because you weren't at the sleepover? But there's a lot still out there for them to do. But hey, a trade could be the way they bring in some of the key pieces.
Yeah, we'll talk about that maybe here in a couple minutes. Before we move on, I just want to say, I know Ryan Poles did talk about Matt Feinstein. Sorry, messed up the first name. Matt Feinstein as their contract guy. It used to be Cliff Stein. It'll be interesting to see. Like he said, they were throwing out multiple scenarios and where they can go with things, and it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. I think you guys hit everything on the head, so I'm going to move on. Another thing that was addressed here at the NFL Combine, not just by Ryan Poles, and we will also throw in Ian Cunningham was also there as general manager for the Atlanta Falcons, also doing a press conference tour. Everything that a general manager does, he was doing. It wasn't Matt Ryan necessarily. It was Ian Cunningham. So draft pick compensation, it came up when Ryan Poles was talking. He said they are in talks with the NFL trying to figure out what is going on. Are they going to get compensation? He basically just referred to it as being odd. And then Ian Cunningham also said when he left the Chicago Bears to take the job in Atlanta, he was under the impression that the Bears would be getting their 2 compensatory draft picks, one for this year, one for next year in the 3rd round. Justin, you can start us off here. What do you think? Do you think, I know we talked about this before on an earlier episode. Do you think there's a chance?
Well, I am starting to think there's a chance, but the sad thing is it shouldn't even be up for debate. I mean, why have a rule like that if you don't plan on living up to it and you're trying to find a back avenue way for this not to happen, which, by the way, oddly enough, is not the Atlanta Falcons' stance on the issue. It's not like they did this to try to like trick the league into not letting the Bears get the picks, but the picks is what allows for maybe future candidates to get these opportunities. And for both these guys who are GMs of color to have to be answering these types of questions, it's undermining the rule itself. And that's the part that's sad to me. But as a Bears fan, of course you want the picks, but what's the point of a rule like that if you're not going to follow up on it?
Yeah, I really like the way Ryan Poles handled it at the press conference. Like he really, stressed both avenues of it. Like one, there's the professional development of his people in the building, and he wants to, nurture and grow and everyone in there, regardless of color. That's the point of, being a leader, to see everybody, grow and develop into bigger and better things. And then the other part of it is there is this rule on the books, right? If a person of color is hired into a decision-making role or the general manager role, however exactly it's worded, which I'll make a point about in a second, then you're supposed to get these picks. Like he didn't hire Ian Cunningham as assistant GM just so he could get picks later. He hired Ian Cunningham because he was good at what he does, and he wanted to see him learn and grow and develop into the position they ultimately got. And then there's also a rule that says if that happens, you're supposed to get picks, and that didn't happen. So the other thing, just the little nuance here that I'm still kind of unclear on exactly, because the NFL hasn't made any public statements on this at all. They haven't even made public statement, not public, but private to Ryan Poles himself. Ryan Poles said the NFL hasn't even talked to him. So what I do want to know, and I haven't been clear from the Falcons camp, and I know you hear this all the time when a new coach gets hired and makes more money than the GM, like who has control over the 53? Like they always say, oh, well, it's if you have to do that, then you're a job. It's always a collaborative effort. It's always a collaborative effort. But if Matt Ryan actually does have contractual control over the 53 and Ian Cunningham is just, the role of a GM, managing the draft, managing free agency, managing all the scouts and everything. But at the end of the day, Matt Ryan's making the picks and signing the contracts, then that is something that might be like, oh, okay, I guess I get it. But like, we don't know. We have no idea because no one's saying anything.
I mean, we do have a little bit of an idea because Matt Ryan has publicly stated that the GM role will be the GM role as any other GM within the league. So if that's truly the case and it's contractually laid out that way, to your point, where he's not overseeing the 53 and it's, he's more like Kevin Warren in this situation, then you should be getting the picks, right?
Right.
In every aspect, Ian Cunningham received a promotion. I'm sure he's making more money. He's got more responsibility. He's more liable for everything that's out there. And yet they're acting like this wasn't a promotion, which is just nonsense.
So, it's
a
crazy.
Promotion to the right level. Like it's not just any promotion. You can't go from scout to assistant GM and expect compensation. You're supposed to be hired into a GM role. Like,
okay.
That's the promotion.
He had made it as high as he could, where the only step up, I feel, was a GM. So
Right. Well, if they don't get those compensatory picks, maybe they can get draft picks by trading Tyson Bagent. There was a rumor that stemmed from an Arizona beat reporter, I think a week or two ago. I think it was about a week ago, that they might be interested in trading for Tyson Bagent. It sounds like those rumors are true because Ryan Poles addressed them. Ben Johnson addressed them. There have been calls. Now, I will say, we mentioned it at the top of the show. There's a lot of smoke during this time. Is it truly calls that are happening? Is this just their way of stirring the pot and getting that fire going so that there are actually trade rumors that become realistic during this time of year? Not exactly sure what I think about the situation. I will say, for me personally, before I turn it over to you guys, I have to have a specific target of trade compensation that I would get back for him for me to feel like it's valuable. Where are you guys with that? Justin, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, same. I mean, I don't think they just actively want to trade Tyson Bagent. And that was even how I perceived what they said. They both talked about how much they've put into developing him, how much they think of him. But I think it's so that if any teams out there do want to come after his services, they know they can't be coming with a weak offer. And I mean, I'm actually wondering if you're a team out there who needs a quarterback, or at least maybe a bridge quarterback, let's say, are you willing to give up a third-round pick, maybe even a second-round pick for Tyson Bagent for 2 years at like $4.5 million? Or do you want to pay Malik Willis $20 million plus or Daniel Jones $30 million plus? I don't know what it will cost you. So I think there could be a market. I'm just curious, like, is any of this coming from Tyson Bagent himself or his agent himself? And not that they don't want to put that out there, but like, he wants that opportunity at some point to be a starter. It doesn't look like it's here in Chicago. And Ben Johnson said he's one of the top 32 in the league.
So this was by far and away the most interesting part of what came out today. It would have been very, very easy for Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles to get up there and say, no, we're not trading Tyson. We love him. He's doing a great job. Like, there's no way he's not going to trade it. But instead, like, I would actually go the exact opposite, Justin. I think this says they want to trade him. They want to cash in on this right now. I mean, you're talking about a quarterback who they think is a starter in the league on a $5 million a year contract. Like, that's worth like second-round pick, third-round pick, excess money over the next 2 years. So if they can cash in on a backup quarterback who your starting quarterback appears to be an Iron Man, right? Like, maybe now my guy Case Keenum actually has
my thunder. I was going to say something.
And you're getting a second or third round pick, or maybe it's like a fourth round pick this year and a conditional second next year based on playing time and performance or something like that. But to me, this was an announcement to the league that the Bears are, Tyson Bagent is up for bidding.
Awesome.
I like the fact that you say that it could be a conditional, and I think it might be more valuable for them to make it for 2027 than it would be for 2026 in order to get that conditional. Like, look, based on his playing time, we're guaranteed a fourth, but if he plays enough, we're getting a third or a second. That to me would be ideal. I guess we'll see where that goes.
Another way to get more for Tyson Bagent than he did for Justin Fields, though, right?
It would be insane. Where are the Justin Fields truthers right now if that happened? Oh my gosh.
I don't think there's anybody who is both a Justin Fields truther and a Tyson Bagent truther.
That diagram does not intersect. Maybe the Bears are playing chess right now instead of the league playing checkers.
Maybe. Well, another guy who's potentially on the trade block, somebody we've been talking about since last year, is still being talked about now. And I viewed this as both the comments from Ryan Poles specifically, but even Ben Johnson too. It just felt like it was very open-ended. It felt like you could go either way. It kind of depends on where the wind blows and what those offers could be like, but they definitely weren't ruling anything out, specifically on Waddle and Sylvie. Ryan Poles was asked, will DJ Moore be on the roster in 2026? And Ryan Poles' answer was, it's hard to say right now. So Bob, I'm going to you next. What do you think? Is the DJ Moore trade more likely to happen now than it was when we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago? What do we think?
I don't know. I mean, this almost seems like where's the Bears Stadium going to be? Like all these developments happen, but does anything actually happen? I mean, it seems like the most likely scenario is he's under contract with the Bears and he's going to continue to be under contract with the Bears. I don't really know. Like the talk about trading DJ Moore wasn't quite as strong as the talk about trading Tyson Bagent or considering those. But then there's the bigger contract involved. So maybe the reality of being able to move that contract is harder. But I really didn't glean anything from this other than they know that they're under the cap. They know that DJ Moore makes a lot of money. They know that he's still a good productive player. So it makes sense to line all those things up and figure out how to move that contract to get some other production in for that money. But, I think they have no idea what's actually possible.
But what we said on our offseason was restructuring him just pushes the problem into next year. And Ryan Poles, both in addressing DJ Moore directly, but also just the bigger picture, said we want to be smart about how we are going into this season and those that follow. And so it really made me think trading him is the top option. And now we got to wait and see. But I imagine there's a market for him. That's what we're hoping for. But even if it's just for the money savings, they're going to need that. I mean, because like you said before, if we're not doing the restructures, getting to that top number is no longer really in play.
Yeah, and if it's just about shifting the money, then like we're still just talking about maybe top end getting a 4th round pick, but likely a 5th round pick, and that's what we're talking about here.
Not as much as you'll get for Bagent.
Probably not.
Probably not. I don't really have much to add here other than I'd be completely okay with either the restructure or, for the 1 year or the trade, like it, depending on what they get back. But even if it's just a 5th round pick, to me, it just makes sense. You got to move on financially. You got to move on within the locker room. I think you got to give more opportunity to Luther Burden and you got to hope Roma Dunze can stay healthy all year. And then, those are your 2 guys.
Oh, one more thing. I didn't hear the Waddle and Sylvie, but when they say, will he be on the team next year? And you said, what was the response?
It's hard to say right now.
It's hard to say right now. You don't answer that about Caleb Williams. You don't answer that about Luther Burden. I mean, you can go through 20 or 30 guys that you don't say that about. So the fact that you said that's kind of telling.
It speaks volumes. It does. The underlying factor is there. And I think Gary Ross in our text chat basically said he thinks DJ's gone. Now, I don't think that's insider information. I just think that's how he portrayed it. So throwing that out there as well. Look, they're at the NFL Combine, so we got to get some draft talk in, right? One of the things that Ryan Poles addressed specifically was asked about the defensive line group, and he made a comment that he believes that the edge class is deeper than the interior. Justin, I don't know how much draft research you have been able to do at this point. I will jump in here at the end, but I wanted to throw it to you first and see what you think about this. And what does that where do you think that goes with the current roster construction and where our minds were when we were doing this? We had our manager hats on, GM hats on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that comment actually I did catch that comment, and it surprised me because I feel like interior D-line has so many high-level guys that you could see them taking with that first pick at 25. But when you think a little longer, I mean, they're looking at these prospects all the way through that 7th round, whereas I always pick the guy with the funniest name by the time we get to the 7th round. So in terms of overall depth, not just, the top level of a position, I'm going to go with them and the scouts and exactly what they're looking for. One thing I heard, I don't know if it was Johnson or Poles, but kind of talking about having a little bit better understanding as the season was progressing throughout the season of what a Dennis Allen prototype actually is, or what they really need on to be successful on the defense. And one of those things is obviously speed. I think we'll talk about that in the next section. But they know what they're looking for. So when they say that, that's according to how they're approaching the draft. And so I'm going to take him at his word on that, which I guess could mean DT would be an earlier position to go for if you don't see it as deep of a position.
Yeah, I mean, he also pretty specifically mentioned about, best player available is always their strategy, still their strategy, as evidenced by Colson Loveland in the first round last year where they still had Cole Kmet. So I think what this might lead you to believe is that it's more likely that defensive end is a best player available later on in the draft, just because if that's a deeper position than defensive tackle. So if you got equally graded prospects earlier, you're weighing a best player available who's got a grade defensive end very close to like a cornerback or a D tackle, then maybe you take the cornerback or DT because you think you have a better chance of best player available being defensive end later. But, it's interesting to hear GMs talk about the class holistically like that. Usually you don't get answers like that so much. But, I mean, with all the draft analysts out there nowadays, that kind of stuff is kind of common information anyway. But, I'm not really reading too much into it.
Yeah. So furthermore, he did state, I think this was not in the actual press conference. That might have been the one that they had where it was like them just kind of off the side, more with just the Bears beat guys. But he was asked what he's looking for in defensive line prospects. His response was motor, relentlessness, violence, explosiveness. Poles added, I want to improve our defensive speed overall, which again, Justin, you did touch on, and we will touch on a little bit here in a second in the next section. But I do want to say, for me, I have gone through quite a few defensive tackles. I've gone through quite a few defensive ends. And what I will say is I think the top end of the group is very similar in how many prospects there are that I have first round grades on. For example, I have 3 first round grades for defensive tackle, and then I have 2 second round grades. Okay. No, yes. 2 players with second round grades. Defensive end, right? I have 5 with first round grades. So it's a little bit heavier, I think, actually, in the first round there. But then I have way more guys who I have second round grades on at the defensive end position. So I just feel like the depth where he's talking, and maybe he's going all the way to 7th round, like you had said, Justin, but I feel like the drop off is more drastic once you get past, your Dante Corleones and your Daryl Jacksons, your Dominique Oranges, who are probably more like 3rd, 4th round grades. The drop off after them is just more severe, right? Where at the defensive end position, you could probably get a solid defensive end in the 4th, 5th round that you're not getting a defensive tackle. So I think that's what he's aligning with or implying here. And I think that I completely agree with it. So, all right. We touched on speed. Something that kind of came up was, it sounds to me like they are really, really emphasizing a change in the defensive back group, which is a little bit interesting, seeing that last year we felt like that was probably the strongest group in the defense. I think injuries obviously are playing a huge part in this, but it's also contracts, right? So based on the conversation that he had, or the comments that were had, it almost sounded to me like Byard and Brisker might not be in the cards for 2026. They might not be even a thought at this point. Nashawn Wright, another guy, is probably out the door, right? Maybe Tyreek Stevenson isn't going to see the playing time that he has been seeing over the last couple of years. Sounds like corner also is in play and not just safety. I forgot who I went to on the last one. I think it was Justin, so I'm going to throw it to Bob. Bob, what do you think? Do you think now not just safety, but maybe corner might be a big play for the Bears this offseason?
So to that specifically, I've always thought, when you're talking about best player available, that like corner was a sneaky option for the first round pick in the draft this year. If there's somebody who they really like, who's there at 25 and it's a cornerback, I think they have no problem whatsoever running up to that podium and selecting a cornerback. Now, I did say before that Tyson Bagent was the most interesting nugget that came out of this. And I think the second most was kind of the difference in tone when addressing the Kevin Byard possible re-signing right after the season. Like Ryan Poles was like, obviously that's the guy you want to keep around. And then today it was more like, well, it's just kind of hard and you got to weigh team captains and you got to weigh production and age and money and all this stuff. So it was I'm not saying, he misspoke either today or, a few weeks ago, but it certainly seemed like the whole situation has has kind of changed in his mind. Maybe now he's more aware of what he's actually capable of being able to do this offseason.
Maybe he thinks he can trade Tyson Bagent for Minka Fitzpatrick straight up or something like that. I don't know.
I don't think that's enough. I want more than Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, and a pick. Give us a pick too.
Right.
I think we can't forget that this is year 2 of a new regime. I know Ryan Poles has been around for a while, but when Ben Johnson came in, that's when things really changed here organizationally, I would say. And one thing I heard Ryan Poles say that I kind of felt like maybe is a Ben Johnson influence was him talking so much about getting good football players, and instead of just let's go with the RAS score. I mean, you do need more speed, but find the football players. He talked about modeling after, I think he said the Steelers and the Ravens and these organizations that for a long time are just consistently at the top, and they're able to restock through the draft, even though they're picking in the later rounds. And he said they're picking good football players, and they're not sometimes the sexiest picks, but they're solid football players. And so, yes, I want to see the speed. Yes, advantage to guys who fit maybe a prototypical Dennis Allen type, but they're still building their vision. And so I don't know what they have up their sleeve. There's a lot of ways to get to what they're looking for. And maybe it's nothing like what we did on our mock off season. I mean, we're just 3 finalists. Maybe here and there we get some intel, but who knows the approach they're going to do. Nobody is truly safe, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Not too many people were promised much. Let's see what they decide to do and how they approach it.
It's real interesting because literally this week I've been messing around with different mock draft simulators, and I've been taking corner at times, trading back in the second round and or making trades and getting 2 second-round picks. And I've been taking a corner with one of those seconds, or if I fall into the early third, mainly just because of best player available. Like there's some solid corners that you can get in that second and third round range. And it'll be real interesting to see what they do at that position. All right. I have nothing else. With that, we can end the show. Again, I will say I will be back with more stadium talk. So definitely make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you want to check that out. We will have plenty of draft content. Like I said, I've been messing around with the mock draft simulators and just kind of playing and tooling around with that. My overall list of prospects that I've been reviewing has gotten longer. I've even touched on some offensive tackles, knowing that they might need a left tackle. And I have a guy that I'm really, really loving if he's available in the late second or late third, if he falls even further. So yeah, lots to come. Please make sure you are subscribed. Please make sure you like this video. Leave us a comment for the algorithm. Guys, you got anything else?
Go Bears.
Go Bears. All right. Till next time, bear down, claws up.